There is an ironic truth about Hollywood. People spend their entire lives building monuments out of spotlights and glamorous headlines, only to discover, when the shadows of old age finally arrive, that those things weigh almost nothing. Robert Mitchum, the man with the legendary sleepy eyes who portrayed everyone from outlaws to weathered heroes across hundreds of films, was no exception. At the age of 80, as he quietly watched the sun sink below the horizon, Mitchum was no longer surrounded by questions about which director was the greatest or which screenplay had changed cinema forever. People came to him not to discuss awards that had long since gathered dust, but to learn about the life behind the screen. And in those quiet moments, Mitchum came to realize a truth that was both painful and strangely comforting. Fame, the very thing for which he had sacrificed much of his youth, ultimately says very little about a person's true worth. He came to understand that sometimes an afternoon spent talking over a cup of coffee, or the smile of an old friend during life's darkest moments, carried far more meaning than a standing ovation at the Academy Awards. As the spotlight gradually faded with the passing years, and box office figures became nothing more than lifeless numbers on a page, what truly remained, what alone could still warm the heart of a solitary drifter like him, were the people who had stood beside him through every storm. Today, let us hear Mitchum speak about the 5 people he truly loved, not as Hollywood stars, but as the souls who shaped his life. Humphrey Bogart, the honesty behind the tough exterior rouse. If there was one person who truly understood Robert Mitchum in a world filled with masks, it was Humphrey Bogart. To the public, Bogart was the embodiment of the hard-boiled detective, a survivor who moved through the shadows with a half-smoked cigarette forever resting on his lips. But to Mitchum, Bogart was far more than that. He was a man who despised pretense to the very core of his being. Bogart never wasted time trying to create a polished image for others. He was an open book, even if what lay inside sometimes made people uncomfortable. Mitchum was always fascinated by the way Bogart challenged Hollywood's unspoken rules. Bogart did not care who you were, how wealthy you were, or how much influence you possessed. If you were dishonest, he would let you know immediately, whether through a piercing glance or a blunt remark. To Mitchum, the directness was never rudeness. It was honesty in its purest form, something he rarely found in an industry where compliments were often little more than stepping stones to greater fame. Yet beneath that gruff exterior, stern expression, and razor-sharp wit, Bogart concealed a remarkable generosity. Mitchum witnessed countless occasions when Bogart quietly helped friends in difficult circumstances without ever seeking recognition. He believed in a simple yet profound philosophy. Fame is nothing more than a passing breeze that will eventually disappear, but the way you treat people when they are at their most vulnerable is what truly defines who you are. Earning Bogart's respect was never easy. It was a test of patience and character. But once you made it beyond those carefully built defenses, you gained a friend whose loyalty lasted a lifetime. Bogart was not the kind of man who stood beside you offering comforting words, but he was the one who would stand beside you in life's hardest battles. To Mitchum, his friendship with Bogart was a guarantee of something rare. It was not gentle, nor was it sentimental, but it was genuine. And in an industry built so often on illusion, truth was the most valuable thing of all. Marilyn Monroe, a soul longing to be understood. To the public, Marilyn Monroe was the ultimate symbol of glamour, a timeless sex symbol seen through a flawless veil of makeup, silk dresses, and radiant smiles on the red carpet. Yet during the times they spent together, Robert Mitchum saw an entirely different Marilyn, a woman carrying a profound sadness within her, a soul as delicate as a sheet of paper, easily wounded by the harsh winds of Hollywood. To Mitchum, Marilyn was someone he both admired and deeply sympathized with. He did not see an icon. He saw a woman blessed with a sharp sense of humor, yet constantly surrounded by loneliness. Marilyn exhausted herself trying to make everyone around her happy, as though other people's approval were the only thing keeping her alive. Her longing to be truly understood became a quiet, persistent ache. She often wondered whether the world would still care about her if the spotlight faded, if her youthful beauty disappeared, and if fame could no longer shield her from reality. Marilyn often spoke to Mitchum about fears that were profoundly human. She was nothing like the shallow figure portrayed by the press. On the contrary, she was remarkably thoughtful and at times astonishingly perceptive. She fully understood the price of fame. She knew she had been turned into an object of fascination, yet felt powerless to escape the very cycle she had helped create. The bond between them came from the fact that they both understood what it meant to be trapped by an image. While Mitchum was forever cast as the brooding gangster, Marilyn was imprisoned by the stereotype of the beautiful but naive blonde. Away from the cameras, she was a considerate woman, overflowing with sensitivity and quiet reflection. Mitchum always held a special place for her in his heart, not because of her extraordinary beauty, but because he recognized the person beneath the legend, a woman who longed to be genuinely loved rather than merely desired by millions of strangers. To him, Marilyn was the most heartbreaking reminder of how fame can slowly destroy a sensitive soul. Unwavering kindness and genuine sincerity. If Hollywood is a grand party of oversized egos, where people are willing to step over one another in pursuit of attention, then Deborah Kerr was like a gentle breeze, quietly passing through without disturbing anyone. Robert Mitchum always remembered her not for her elegant performances or glamorous evening gowns, but for her smile, a warm, genuine smile that instantly put anyone at ease, as though it could lift the weight of an exhausting day. In an industry overflowing with pretense, where kindness was often mistaken for weakness, Deborah Kerr stood as a rare exception. Her kindness came naturally. Although she was an internationally celebrated leading lady, she never embraced the notion of special treatment. She did not surround herself with entourages, never argued over trivial contractual details, and certainly never used her fame to pressure others. To Deborah, professionalism was not about displaying power, but about respecting the work and respecting the people who shared it with her. What Mitchum admired most was her remarkable consistency. No matter how much time passed or how greatly fame rose and fell, Deborah Kerr's attitude towards people never changed. She treated a young production assistant with the very same warmth, attention, and respect that she showed to a renowned director. There was no hierarchy in her kindness, no selective generosity. The legacy Deborah left behind for Mitchum was not found in her unforgettable films or her prestigious Academy Award nominations, deserving though she was of every one of them. Her true legacy lived in the memories that still brought a smile to his face whenever he thought of her, and in the echo of her calm, compassionate voice that continued to resonate in his mind. In a film industry where almost everything could be bought, Deborah Kerr's unwavering kindness and genuine sincerity became the one priceless treasure Mitchum kept safely among his most cherished memories, a lasting reminder that greatness never needs to announce itself with the loudest voice. Laughter and a friendship that endured. If Robert Mitchum's career was painted in the shades of classic film noir, then Jane Russell was the unexpected burst of light that brightened the entire picture. Mitchum often said that simply hearing Jane's laughter was enough to make the exhaustion of a demanding day on set disappear. It was not the carefully restrained laugh of a glamorous film star, but a rich, infectious sound that echoed across the studio, like filling the room with an unmistakable warmth. What Mitchum admired most about Jane was her uncompromising authenticity. In a Hollywood that constantly pressured its stars to fit carefully crafted ideals, Jane Russell remained fiercely independent. She never played political games, nor did she ever try to wear someone else's mask to satisfy the press or studio executives. She was unapologetically herself, direct, outspoken, and completely comfortable in her own skin. Around Jane, Mitchum never felt the need to maintain the image of the brooding tough guy. He could simply be Robert, an ordinary man with his own vulnerabilities and sense of humor. Jane Russell possessed a remarkable ability to listen. During conversations, rather than waiting for her turn to deliver another star-worthy remark, she genuinely paid attention. She looked people in the eye, absorbed every detail of what they were saying, and made them feel valued as human beings rather than merely colleagues listed on a cast sheet. Their friendship reached far beyond the films they made together or the projects they shared. It became a bond untouched by distance or time. Mitchum often recalled that even after many years had passed, when their lives had taken different paths and age had caught up with them both, every reunion felt exactly the same as the first. There was no need for empty pleasantries or lengthy updates about successes and disappointments. They simply picked up their conversation as though they had parted only the day before. To Mitchum, Jane was far more than an outstanding co-star. She was a lifelong friend, a symbol of optimism and loyalty that neither time nor fame could ever diminish. John Wayne, a loyal friend who knew how to listen. When people think of John Wayne, they usually picture the towering cowboy of the American West, a symbol of toughness, an indomitable figure with a steely gaze and an unmistakable commanding presence. But to Robert Mitchum, a man who questioned almost everything about Hollywood, John Wayne was a pleasant surprise. In Mitchum's memories, behind the dazzling success of countless westerns, the Duke was neither a distant hero nor an intimidating giant. He was a man who delighted in off-camera stories, with a sharp sense of humor that could ease the tension on any film set with nothing more than a well-timed joke. What Mitchum admired most about Wayne was not his fame, but the way he treated everyone as equals in an industry built on rigid hierarchies. Although Wayne's status placed him on a level few could ever reach, he never surrounded himself with barriers that separated him from others. To Wayne, the lighting technician, the catering assistant, and the young actor just beginning a career all deserved the same respect as the most influential studio executive. He never expected special treatment. He preferred to be regarded as an ordinary working man, approachable, grounded, and genuine. It was this remarkable humility that dissolved barriers and created a sense of connection that Mitchum rarely found in any other star. Yet beyond being a generous colleague, John Wayne became something even more important to Mitchum, a quiet harbor in the midst of life's storms. Mitchum, whose own life was marked by noise and a fiercely independent spirit, found himself genuinely surprised by Wayne's extraordinary ability to listen. In private conversations, after the cameras had stopped rolling and no audience remained, Wayne often chose silence. He never dominated the room with stories of his own achievements or displayed the enormous ego one might have expected from a legendary figure. Instead, he spent most of his time listening, seeking to understand and quietly sharing the burdens that Mitchum had long hidden behind his carefree exterior. In a constantly changing Hollywood, where friendships were often measured by box office success and where people could easily disappear when careers declined, John Wayne remained as dependable as solid rock. His loyalty to those he trusted was unwavering. Mitchum knew that, regardless of how unpredictable life became or how many times he stumbled, the Duke would still be there. Wayne's sincerity and loyalty were never as loud as the gunfire in his films, but they endured with the quiet strength of a true friend. He taught Mitchum that sometimes listening with genuine compassion is a far greater act of courage than any heroic scene ever captured on screen. As Robert Mitchum reflected on his memories of these 5 remarkable people, he came to realize a truth that was both harsh and deeply beautiful. Cinematic glory is never the final legacy. The celebrated performances, prestigious awards, and multi-million-dollar contracts that had once defined a lifetime of ambition had become little more than lifeless keepsakes left behind the curtain. They have no heartbeat, no warmth, and most importantly, they cannot love. Mitchum came to understand that the value of a life is not measured by what you accomplished beneath the glow of the cinema screen, but by the mark you leave on the hearts of those who walked beside you. At the age of 80, success no longer meant standing alone at the summit of fame. Instead, it became a portrait shaped by shared laughter, mutual understanding, and the unwavering loyalty he had been fortunate enough to receive from Wayne, Kerr, Bogart, Monroe, and Russell. He realized that the finest moments of his life were not those spent beneath the brightest spotlights, but the ordinary moments, the quiet conversations, and the silent acts of kindness shared with others. Those were the bonds that kept him from being consumed by the loneliness that so often accompanies fame. When the final lights fade and the cameras stop rolling, all that truly remains, all that has the power to withstand the passage of time, is the faces and voices of the people we love. For Robert Mitchum, those memories were the only treasures truly worth holding close. It was no longer the story of a Hollywood star. It was the story of a man who had learned to cherish the warmth of human connection, the one thing more precious than even everlasting fame.